The Backdoor GAA Podcast for 2023 is now brought to you by Steede Motor Group. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, visit steedemotorgroup.ie.
So delighted now to be joined by Jeff Lynskey, and we'll have Davy Glennon in as well, a former Galway hurler and current Westmeath hurler and current Mulla hurler as well, and brother, of course, of Ronan Glennon, who'll be playing with Galway this weekend. Obviously here to look ahead to the big game this weekend, the All-Ireland semi-final between Galway and Limerick. It simply doesn't get any bigger than this. Galway win and they're where they want to be in an All-Ireland final 2 weeks on from this weekend. But Jeff, it's slowly building up this week to the game. There is now, I suppose, particularly with the footballers gone now, you could say, there's a lot of build up and hype now about this All-Ireland semi-final coming up this weekend.
Yeah, look, we're all looking forward to it, especially after getting the win the last against Tip. You know, we went down to Limerick in hope, and the lads put together a really good performance in terms of their grit and the resilience to get the result. And look, we go up, I suppose, to Croke Park on Saturday. But there was a small bit of confidence, you know, in terms of, like, Limerick have been hanging on in games, but the 4-week break will probably help them enormously. But I think, look, in terms of our own lads, in terms of performance levels, like, you'd have to be really happy with them after Tip games. I know we missed an awful lot, like we had 18 wides and we didn't execute all the goal chances, but set up tactically and structure. We were very good. I suppose the conundrum for us, for the lads, is how they're going to set up against Limerick the next day.
Are you going more in confidence this year, Jeff, compared to last year? Are you going more in confidence than hope?
A bit of both. I think if the lads perform like they did against Tip, plus execute their chances, I think we'll have a right crack of it. And again, it's going to boil down to the last 10 minutes. And who was the better finishing bench? Like Tom Annan, the last that come on, got 3 points. Fenton come on, Liam Collins come on. Joe's out now with the hammer. But like would I be confident? I'd be 50-50. We're going to have to do an awful lot right in terms of our own game and execute all the different parts of our game in terms of our work rate, our puck outs, ball distribution, and nullifying them. And then obviously getting the matchups right. So we have an awful lot to kind of get right. But look, from chatting to a few of the lads over the last couple of weeks, they're confident of putting a really good performance in on Saturday.
What's this week like for you now, Davy, with having Ronan involved in an All-Ireland semi-final?
I don't think much changes. I suppose Ronan is his own man. Especially, I suppose, with me being with Westmeath and him being with Galway. Like, I know for years playing with Galway myself that you wouldn't really want to be asking any questions inside the campus, very tight, I guess, between management and players. So I wouldn't go there with him. I'd have a bit of respect that way, that I wouldn't like him to be maybe giving me any info or a bit of chat. So, like, I'd keep my distance from him. Look, I suppose Mr. Zanton, in the last couple of weeks, I suppose he wasn't getting a look in maybe in the Kilkenny game and stuff. When you check in with him, see he's all right, and like being 8 years older than him, I suppose, being maybe giving him a bit of advice to keep the hedge. And I suppose his chance will come, like every other player as well. I suppose he was a little bit disappointed not getting as much game time, I suppose, in Leinster Championship as he did maybe like last year before he got injured. He was going very well. I think he had hit 4 or 5 points against Cork in the league. But when he came back from injury, he was straight in. I think he played against Cork, and then he had a good game against Limerick. Himself and David Burke, I think, came off near the end, but they ran their legs into the ground. This year, I suppose his second year is a little bit tougher. So I suppose just more encouragement and doing the right things is there for him. But I'd leave him alone and let him play his own game, because there's enough of pressure on them, and there's enough of people that will be asking him questions. So I kind of understand just to keep back and keep my distance, you know.
His development as well, particularly in the last 2 years, it probably comes as no shock to you, Davy, but you must look on with satisfaction as well.
Yeah, I think Galway this year compared to last year have a better bench. They could have maybe a better panel, I think, than Limerick overall. I suppose the big disappointment this week, I suppose, was the news that Jo is out, and I suppose he brought a good injection of pace into the forward line once he came in, and he was busy there the last two games. Liam Collins is doing very well, but you see in terms of like the younger lads that have come in the last year or two, their physique and their shape, their fitness has grown as they get older, and with a bit of experience. I suppose since you had them, Jeff, in 17, your Ronans, who else? You had Morrissey. All these guys have grown into big men, and it's now their chance to stand up. And I suppose they're the next leaders of Galway. Like your Joe Cannings and Aidan Hart, Johnny Combs, like they're all, I say, gone now. So it's time now, I suppose, these guys step up, and they have the ability, no doubt. I have full confidence in them now to step up. They're big physical men, hate hurling, and it's their time now, I think, to rock.
How do you look on now, Jeff, with dealing at some of them lads, particularly at minor level, but even Davy talks there, and like we're talking about the development in particular? Like, I suppose when you had them at minor levels, they were small men, but when you look at their development now over the last few years.
As Davy touched on there, like physically, they're now ready at 24, 25. In terms of under 20s now making a senior level, it's few and far between. I think I would have spoken the podcast before. Like even the 15 lads, we have Finton, Evan, Bino, Keenan. All these lads are physically ready, but they're more probably mentally ready for the kind of the trials and tribulations. David touched on it, they were running the kind of ups and downs of the intercounty game, and that's what's really hard for them in terms of being able to deal with not being played. And being able to be ready mentally and physically then if called upon. And I suppose it's a roller coaster ride there for them at senior to county. And the physical side of it is one side of it, but then it's the mental side of it where they're able to deal with the pressures of that. And when they do get game time, and we've seen it with Keenan the last day, they do get a shot of confidence. And I'm just hoping that they carry that level of performance on Saturday evening as well.
You mentioned it there, Davy, about these players standing up. Is this really going to be the time now for, like you talked there about the younger players, but the younger players in particular, is it up to them to stand up this weekend for Galway to get a result?
Well, I think we touched on a little bit there during the week. It was just actually, I was having a conversation with someone that the likes of your Thomas Monaghan's have grown into men now and have been, say, one of the vocal cards in the Galway team. He was dropped from 2007. In 2019, the same day, I think he was actually told maybe that by Shane O'Neill. He was let go out of the panel. I think he was asked maybe to go back and get a little bit stronger and improve on stuff. That was 19. Maybe 20. It was actually February 20 when I was let go from the Galway panel. I think it was the same day he was as well. Since that, I suppose it's a great character to show that he was able to step away, do what he needed to do, and come back. He has improved his game so much. I think he played centre forward for you, Jeff, in the minor, and his work rate was massive. Like for his size, he needs probably to bring something different to a team. He's like his work rate, his ability to carry ball, his ability to score. So he has it all. And I suppose it's for him to click. A prime example, I suppose, was last week against Tipperary. He actually he came on for Ronan and he popped over 3 points. And I suppose good teams need to have finishers now. And I suppose he did his job. And when you look as a manager, you look out and you bring on a player, you're kind of asking the question, well, what are you going to do for me now when you come on? Are you going to get a free? Are you going to carry ball? Are you going to work hard? Are you going to get me scores? And I suppose that was an ideal situation there, that you had certain amount of players running themselves into the ground for 50 minutes, and then the game opens up and you're able to inject your finishers. And I suppose that's what they're calling nowadays. Some lads that you're bringing on might be better than the lads you start because they're finishing the game. And he's one example that done that. And I hope that we have lads on Saturday evening, they can do the same, because there's going to be 20 lads needed. Your 5 subs are going to be vital, because I suppose for us to keep into Limerick, they're odds-on favourites. They're big physical men. They're All-Ireland champions. So we probably need to be in that game with 10 minutes to go, going down the home straight, 60 minutes gone in the game. Let's fire in a few fresh legs, and they finish the game and they win the game for us, you know.
Jeff, it's just something we touched on off air as well, about in Croke Park at the weekend. Galway will probably finish with their strongest team on the pitch.
Yeah, look, if you even looked at last Sunday with the Dubs, you know, they kept guys on the bench that 7 All-Irelands won. My motto always was going up there that you finish with your strongest 15. And the finishers, as Davy right alluded to, are the guys you need. I look, you're going to probably need, as Davy said there, 5. Touch wood, we don't get too many injuries in the backs, because you've Fintan to come on, Jack Fitz is out, O'Lawless is going well at present, I'm hearing, and then you're relying probably on Tom again to come on. J.O.'s not an option, and then Declan McLaughlin was on the subs as well that asked us. So you're looking at these guys who've had a bit of a taste of it. And these Limerick guys are big physical guys. They're a bit like our own lads at 17 or 18. These guys are going to tire in the last 4 or 5 minutes. And that's the likes of Liam Collins and Declan McLaughlin with the fresh minds and fresh legs that you could really, really hurt them. I was just touching on there, Davy, there last year, our game manager last 2 or 3 minutes last year when we had chances, we didn't convert, and our ball usage in particular, those last 2 or 3 minutes weren't at the level we needed to be. And I'm just hoping that the lads' experience will count in terms of that they make really good decisions with the ball, particularly the last 2 or 3 minutes, because I think it is going to go down to the wire. And hopefully we'll have the players on the pitch that's going to be able to finish the job for the county.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think, I suppose, that's the difference between the good teams and the bad teams, that near the end, the decision making is a big thing. And I suppose one of our decision making in the Leinster final wasn't good enough. Obviously, I know tired minds, 70 minutes gone the clock. The weather was unreal. I suppose it took a lot out of the players, and a split second, your decision making, you do something mad, and it ends up as a goal, and that's the way it goes. And like, there's a lot of hindsight, like, should have done this, should have done that, but at the end of the day, like, the player brought in the field, he's 70 minutes of work done. It's just split second stuff that happens. You know what I mean?
How do you look at this weekend overall, Davy? Do you fully believe Galway can turn Limerick over?
I honestly think that Galway have a great chance. I think they have a better chance now than they did last year, because their panel is good enough. I think they've nothing to lose. There was a lot of pressure on management, I suppose, coming into the Tipperary game. If it was a win or a lose, what was going to happen? I suppose there's extra pressure on because of Henry being there. But I think now that they have the players, I think they have a set game plan that they're happy with. I think players are comfortable in positions. I think they have players to come into positions, whether Conor Cooney starts or he comes on. I think he's a great sub, strength-wise. He has experience. Your Decky McLaughlin's, as you say, fresh, no dead wood, nothing to lose. Go out there as he did against Kilkenny and scored a point. Like, would your older player do that, take on that shot? Maybe not. But these younger players have legs. They have no pressure on their shoulders. They've nothing to lose, and that's what you need. Like, open the shoulders at Croke Park. And I suppose they're training since last November, fitness tests, all this stuff. This is the day that you want to be doing this now. Like, so it's time now, I suppose. And I know with J.O. getting injured, but the other side of it is it opens a spot for someone else now to step up. Your guys that aren't in the 26, I've been there myself, that someone gets injured, someone is out sick. It's an opportunity now for someone outside the 26 to hold their hand up this week in training, be fresh, and maybe offer something. Look, we'll go back to 2012. Walter Walsh was sprung against Galway and fired in on top of Johnny Cohen. Scored 1-2, I think, that day. So we just need players like that to step up to the mark. Different players, someone that's unknown, and take their chance and trust that management will give them their chance.
Well, Jeff, just obviously you mentioned earlier on, and Davy's mentioned it too, Jason Flynn's hamstring injury. It was a blow because every game this year, Jason Flynn has been making an impact from the bench.
Yeah, look, fairness to Gio, even the last day he was busy, but there was one or two balls and it was going in there. I was saying, Gio, just stay, don't be making runs, you know, and it's hard on them because by all accounts he was flying it in training the following night, you know, and it's really tough as Davy touched on there. They put in a hard yard. He had a hamstring injury as well last year. They kept him out for an awful long time. But Conor Cooney's going to be needed now the next day. He had 3 shots the last day. Probably should have scored 2, if not 3 points when he came on. They need to be executed the next day. But I suppose the key part for me then is nullifying the threat. Like all the top teams in Munster are present, went man to man with Limerick. So will we go with Cahill back, or do we push up and keep Nash close to his own goal? That's probably going to be a conundrum for the lads. And I say probably the next day.
Just there, do you see the team lining out the same as we did against Tip?
They'll cause us problems if we can cut off that corner that they like hitting Glennon into his catch in hand, that kind of left corner. They put an awful ball in there, and Galway were very good for the last 2 years in cutting off that side of the pitch. The biggest problem we had when we had Park Sweeper last year is the attacking threat. Then once we have possession of the ball, your +1 needs to become an option and carrying that ball out for you. It's not just about marking space or going zonal. I would say the next day we'll probably have the same 15. Probably Park will probably go back on Aaron Glennon.
So you think Park will go full back?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I do on Glennon, and probably Mac would be probably better suited to Gareth Hegarty. I don't know what Davy thinks on that. If there was my own matchup, I'd be more comfortable with that. But I don't want to see Nash free. He's too good going forward in linking play and bringing the ball out of defence. And the teams in Munster, particularly Clare in particular, have got huge joy in causing Limerick problems when they went man on man.
So you moving Sean Lalande then across on Tom Marcy?
I think Sean will be a man marking job on who they're not going to change their midfield Limerick with Donovan, Will O'Donoghue. That's not going to be changed. But it's Sean did a brilliant job the last day on Noel McGrath. It is probably a toss up between last year it was Joseph on Hegarty, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Finton was on
Hegarty.
Yeah.
Joseph was the far side. So like it's creating a mismatch for ourselves, but obviously looking at what strengths they have and nullifying them. But it's how we attack them in particular, and how we go after them. Clare created an awful lot of chances, lads. I think they created 45 scored chances in the Munster final. I think it was 8 more shots than Limerick created. Now we haven't got a Shane O'Donnell, we haven't got a Tony Kelly, but with the lads we have, if Bino fires, if Evan does what he's doing in the last couple of games, Wheelo, Keenan Fahy, they're going to be really, really important to us the next time. Bino seems to come alive, and against Limerick, he got a brilliant goal last year, but that's going to be needed the next day as well.
Just on the matchups there, Davy, Jeff talked about defensively. Would you be along similar lines with those?
I do think there is matchups, but I do think that Galway have to push up. I think Galway have to go man on man on Limerick. They didn't do it against Tip. I don't think that performance against Tip will beat Limerick. It was like tennis, I think, for the first 15-20 minutes, because over and back, like at midfield, you could see that they were living at scraps. Cahill got onto an awful lot of ball, but you're not going to win. You're not going to beat Limerick. You're not going to win the semi-final with Wheelo up top doing what he's doing at the moment. He's absolutely flying, but he needs a little bit more from, I suppose, your Beanos, your Evan Islands, Kevin Cooney. These boys now need to, another 10% has to come from each and every one of them for Galway to have a chance. In fairness to Wheelo, Galway were only kept in the game against Kilkenny in the Leinster final because Wheelo was holding that there. He was keeping them in the game when things were going bad. Now, there was lads that have off days and stuff like that. It's gone. Doesn't matter. We're in a semi-final against Limerick now. It doesn't matter what's gone on in the quarter-final or the Leinster final. That's gone. But I do think we need to push up. Clare play a similar type game to Limerick. Maybe they have the players to do that. Maybe Galway are afraid we mightn't have the players to do that. But I do think that if you don't push up on your some of them Limerick backs, they're very good attacking players. I know that Declan Hannon is obviously out. He can pick off 2 or 3 points. But I do think with matchups, I still think we need to push on. Cahill played a deep role against Tipperary. Limerick are going to be looking at that. They're going to try and counteract that. So I do think we're going to need them a little bit more up the field. Cahill is probably one of the best strikers in the country, left and right. So I think we need, like, that man can go out and score 5 points and play in games. So I think we need 2 or 3 points off him. And the only way you're going to get that is a little bit more up that field. And I think we just have to take a chance, take a gamble, push up on them and go man on man, because I think we have the players now. We have games played now that we have strength to go man on man with them.
On that point of Cahill, would you still have him sitting back, or do you just feel it has to be man on man?
Well, I think what he's bringing to the game is that he's able to link up with our half-back line. He's able to link up with your Porrick, your Joe Cooney's, your Garage Max. They're giving him the ball. He's able to pop ball into Wheelo. I suppose it's knocked down on top of their throat. It's basically the ball that they want is basically to grass all day long, out in front of them. They're out in front of them in, and it's game on. Then, like, it's either they're fouled or they take on their man. So it's theirs. But that's I suppose the strength that Cahill has, and that's why he's dropping back into that pocket. He's very good at that. But that's grand. But I think now with Limerick, how strong they are, I think we need to be able to adapt. And I suppose if you're going to compete in an All Ireland, I think you have to be a team that's able to adapt. Limerick probably had to do it with teams firing different scenarios at them. The Clares, the Corks, your Waterfords, whoever it is, Galway fired it at them last year. But, like, I just think that we need to push a little bit further up, whatever happens, and get Cahill closer to the goal on ball and be scoring his 2 or 3 points.
How do you look at our structure when we're talking about it here, Jeff?
Cahill midfield, I agree with Davy in terms of we need to go man on man. But obviously we need to be able to create a +1 at times to give the full back line help. You've seen John Conlon in the Munster final, how he was caught out of position numerous times, and they stretched him across the 45. He wasn't able to sit because they put a shooter on him. So, like, for me, if we can work it whereby the boys in play themselves are able to create a +1 at times, by all means. But if we go out with 7 backs the next day and Cahill sitting that deep, we're going to be in trouble.
So you fully think it simply has to be man on man this weekend?
Not at all times. They could start off they could start off with a +1 or a sweeper. But if they want to win this game, the way to trouble Limerick is go man on man. And obviously the matchups are key. But again, it's like any game at intercounty level. It's going to be the battle at the half-hour lines. Your 2 wing forwards, particularly Limerick with Hegarty and Morrissey, they come really, really deep. So if we have only 5 forwards up there, and they're going to have to try and tackle and turn over these guys, you're going to need extra bodies on the middle third. So that's why I think if we go man on man, we've a better chance 6 on 6 up the far side, putting pressure. Because look, if you look at Kyle Hayes the last couple of games, David Fitzgerald did a good job of him in the Munster final. Teams are targeting him now. They're keeping him up that side of the pitch as much as possible. then obviously the far side, you know, you're looking at it. And then for me, then again, there are two midfielders. The matchups on that again are going to be really important. Sean Allan was a revelation the last day, like he has been in every game. Will Burns go back at 6, as we touched on, Paul? Will they put Keane Lynch back at 6? You know, so you don't know. You don't know. But the most important thing is, and Davy will probably tell you, is getting your own house in order, and making sure everyone is clear on what we're doing, going up to Croke Park and execute that game plan.
Jeff, I'd say even if you were involved in management this weekend with Galway ahead of this game, you simply wouldn't know who Limerick are going to play at 6. And I'd say it's probably going to be a surprise for Galway until Thursday or Friday for Limerick, with Declan Hannon being out at the minute, because they played no competitive game with their new 6. The rumour mill is going around. First it's Keane Lynch, then it's Colin Coughlin. Garrett Hegarty plays there for his club. David Reedy's been mentioned. Dan Morrissey could move out to the half. Like, it's simply an unknown, really, isn't it?
Look, any day Hannon went off, it was Jeremy Burns that slotted in there. And then you had Colin Coughlin come on at wing. I think if Coughlin comes on at wing, it probably suit us. Coughlin is good with ball in hand, but you turn him facing his own goal and running the other way, he's not as effective. So that might work for us on that side of it. But look, again, and I'm probably reinforcing the message, just make sure the lads know what they're doing, and execute our own game plan. If we need to adapt, as Davy was saying, adapt then during the course of the game. But you're dealing with smart individuals up in Croke Park doing our own lads. They've won an All-Ireland. They produced the goods. But as Davy touched on there, we're going to need a performance of the year to beat Limerick. I mean, looking at it for the last 2 years, we've had fits and starts in kind of every game. We've never given a complete performance yet. And I'm just hoping Saturday will be that complete performance from the group.
Just on that as well, Davy, like talking about the middle third there with Jeff, Will O'Donoghue and Dara Donovan being crucial there. Ronan obviously started there with Joseph Cooney against Tip in midfield. Do you see Galway sticking with that?
I personally think they will, because I think that they want, obviously, that 50-60 minutes again of legs, and to obviously go as hard as you can when the legs are gone. Bring in your boys that worked last week. The type of game, I suppose, that maybe Galway need to play to beat these. There's going to be lads that are going to be out on their feet after 50 minutes, and that's 100%. That's acceptable. That's what you're going to need. If you're not going to have that, you're not going to have lads out in the rear after 50 minutes or 40 minutes, whatever it is. You probably won't be near Limerick. But as Jeff alluded to, by Galway pushing up, I think you're taking the pressure off our backs, because if you don't push up on the Kyle Hayes, if you have him running against you, the physique, the physical presence, and the hurling that man has, he could pick off 3 or 4 points down that wing, and it's impossible to stop. It doesn't matter what size you are. We're not massive men on the wings to stop him coming down the line. He's strong. He's a strong man, and he will pick off points. But on the other hand, if you're attacking, you're pushing up on them, you have him on the back foot. Like, them guys need to be tested. They need to be going and defending. They don't defend that often. Like, when you turn them, show me examples of Kyle Hayes defending unbelievable, or hooking or blocking or overturning. Your Declan Hannons, they're not physically, basically, when you turn them, they're not tested. They're not being tested enough. So I think they need to be tested, and we have the players to test them. Like, if we go at them, attack them, it's them in the back foot having to try to stop us, then we have possession of ball. You know what I mean? Instead of them big men driving out against us, like, it's impossible. It's a a sea wave coming against you, and it's very hard to defend that. And then your forwards are filtering back the field. Then you're creating less goal opportunities, which we're probably going to need a goal or two the next day. So by that happening, I think we need to push up. I think we need to go man on man and see what happens for the first 10-15 minutes and bring the game to Limerick.
It is a great point you touch on there, and obviously if Limerick do sit, they do get that body back, and as we touched on, Barry Nash getting on the ball, then Kyle Hayes getting on the ball. It's really imperative this weekend that happens. But, like, honestly, Davy, do you think that is going to happen, or do you see Galway maybe just being a bit too worried about getting the likes of Glennon and Shamie Flanagan 1-on-1?
Well, if you look back, right, if you look at the likes of Butler that came up the field that attacked, he was allowed to attack because we were so far back against Limerick or against Kilkenny. He got on a break. We never tracked the puck out. He got on that break and he scored that goal. He was a cornerback. You know what I mean? So he shouldn't be coming up the field that far. But I suppose it allowed him to come up the field because we were going so far deep. He was able to push up on our forward. So he was getting that far up the field to get on a puck out. So, like, with your Barry Nash scored a goal this year already in the championship. I think it was against Waterford, was it? Where he was able to take a gamble and go up the field because he wasn't afraid, because the forward was so far back the field that he could take a chance that he had numbers back there. But like the opposite way is we push up, he has to now go and defend. He has to look after number one, our forward, not look after the ball or be watching ball watching. He's looking after the back or the forward, and we have to bring that to them, I think, for us to have a chance.
You throw a curveball then, Jeff, of a Brian Kincannon or Kevin Cooney running out of Burns or Hayes?
Hayes, I'd say his stats on fouling per game is probably up around 2, if not 3. So look, with a free taker to caliber of Evan, that's 3 points. Backs don't like being ran at. So like for me, the last day, especially against Tip, the ball we got in, that diagonal ball into the left corner position for Kevin and Wheelo at times, we got great joy out of it. Now Limerick will reading that the next day. But I do think, as Davy touched on it there, it's man-on-man stuff. It's making it very difficult for them, and that battle of the middle third with our 2 half-forward lines, who's able to put huge amount of pressure on the 2 wing backs and the 2 wing forwards. Hegarty hasn't been firing a huge amount. Tom Morrissey has been very good. The missing piece is probably Keane, but like really the last day was very, very good. He was man of the match really in the Munster final on John Conlon. He was stretching him left and right all over the pitch, and Conlon never got to sit. And is our full back line, is Jack, Darden and Park at Garage good enough to go man and man with Flanagan and Aaron Gillan? They will need protection at times. So there will be times when really goes out that whoever is 6 will have to sit and protect and help the lads out. Because look, it's the quality of the ball that Limerick and their ball usage, as we all know, is at a really high level. They haven't been firing a huge amount, but they've got over. Their game sense and their game management and their game experiences has allowed them. They've won 3 games by a point, am I right, and 1 game by 2 all year. You know, so but teams are leaving the minute. If we fire and execute our scoring chances, and we're up around 90% in terms of our efficiency, and I know that's high, but that's what you're going to need to do. And as Davy touched on there, our tip performance will not get us over the line the next day. But if we bring the same grit and determination with a bit more in terms of our execution, and our ball usage needs to improve, because as Davy touched on there, the first half was very poor to watch. But from a structural point of view, I was happy because we were tight. It was a war zone. That's what the lads did, and that's what they come up with. I was delighted with Park in terms of his own resolve, that he was able to bounce back and produce the goods that he did the last day. I thought he was exceptional. I thought he was the player of the match. I know Wheelo got it, but I thought he was player of the match really. But for us going up on Saturday, I said to you off the air, Paul, there's a lot of our parts of our game that we're going to need to execute at a really high level. Our puck outs, ball usage, work rate, execution, all that stuff needs to be on the money in order for us to have a really good chance to get to an honour final.
Great point. Just on there, Jeff, and like as you mentioned earlier on the podcast, we've been at fits and starts this year, and I don't think anyone can really deny that. But Davy, the one thing you could say about this squad, and I'm sure it's no surprise because you played with the majority of these players, the character and resilience they've shown this year has been tremendous. But as Jeff has outlined, it needs to be at the most consistent level, and we can't be in fits and starts really against the standard bearers of hurling. They're going for the 4 in a row of All Ireland titles. They will be, I think, Jeff, you were saying earlier on, the first team since Cork from Munster to reach 4 All Ireland finals in a row. So like when you look at all the accomplishments this Limerick team has achieved, you just have to be on the money, really.
I think you need consistency from every player. Obviously, everyone is not going to be going well on the day. You're going to have lads that are going to be exceptional. You're going to have the guy in the middle, and then you're going to have a couple of obviously poor performances. You're not going to have a 15 absolutely outstanding. You're going to have lads come in. You're going to have injuries. But talk about character. I suppose one player that I think needs to step up. He's at an age now where potentially he could do anything, as in he could go to such highs. Is Bino. Bino wasn't happy with his performance this Tipperary. I know him very well. I know he'd be disgusted getting taken off. I think there's a big performance in Bino on Saturday evening. I think Croke Park suits him. I think he was absolutely outstanding against Kilkenny, and it may take a slap in the arse. It may take a box to get Bino going, a row in the first 5 minutes. I'd love to see him in a row in the first 5 minutes. He got cut that day, and he was absolutely. He came out back out with a bandage on his head, and he loves that. That's the kind of character he is. There's a bit of madness in him, and I suppose you need that as well in a player. But I think if he can strike on Saturday evening, along with Wheelo doing exactly what he's doing at the moment, I think Evan needs to slot every free. I think that's his job there. I think he's in that team to nail every free. He has to nail every free. He has to slot 2 or 3 points in play. That'd be his job done. Kevin Cooney has legs. He's like Speedy Gonzalez when he gets going up the wing. I suppose he needs to probably bring that ball into a shooting zone. He does shoot at times out of the shooting zone. Jeff, you'd know that kind of shooting zone that management are looking for. He got them against Kilkenny in the Leinster final, but they could have went wide too as well, where you'd be given out going, try and get in closer to goal, get into that shooting zone. So I suppose if you can get them players fired and have them running at Limerick, I think the Limerick backs won't be able to go.
It's a really good insight there you gave to Brian Buchanan, and I even seen Jeff, you were smiling during it. Like, is that the kind of character Brian Buchanan is?
Brian's unique in lots of ways, in a good way now, in a good way. But if you're going to war in the morning, you'll bring him with you. In 15, he broke my heart for all summer trying to get him right. We eventually got him right for the All-Ireland final. And I know I haven't got the man of the match today, but Bino was probably player of the match. But the next day, as Derby lose to there, like, he's going to need to bring a 9 out of 10 performance, and he has done it. He was upset the last day coming off. There's no harm in it. There's no harm getting a kick in the arse in that time. But I am expecting a huge performance from the next day. I'd love to put him on Nash. He marked Nash in a Fitz game in 2018 and hurled him up and down. He'd know he'd have the beating of him. So like for me, all 6 forwards need to produce the goods. All 15 need to do something for the cause. And then your 5 lads coming on. And I think the group was getting stronger because of what they had to go through in the Leinster final. They would have got a huge return out of that the following week in training. They've huge amount of resolve and grit. And I am expecting a performance the next day that we haven't seen over the last 2 years. I just have a feeling that the lads are going to produce something very special on Saturday. I've a long time looking at Galway when we go in underdogs in an Ireland semi-final and we're not expecting anything. We usually produce the goods. I'm hoping, touch wood, that's the case on Saturday.
One thing I suppose on matchups I'd love to see. I think Jack Grealish has the ability to take on Aaron Glennon. Jack Grealish is a terrier. If you look at him the way he approaches the ball, he attacks every ball. He's not a big man, but physically, like, you look at his physique, you look at his legs, his arms, like, that man has a great shape to him. He's able to hurl. He loves to attack ball. He loves to push up. He's not a Barry Nash where he's loose, likes to get up the field. He'll do a job at cornerback. The same thing with Morrissey. He mightn't be as much of a terrier as Jack Grealish. Mac, all I want to see him do is wrestle. Stay wrestling with whoever he's on. Because Mac will get ball to ground. If he doesn't get ball to ground, he'll catch it in the air. The crowd erupts. Doesn't matter what he does, as long as he gets the ball and he hits it, whether it's 10 yards or 100 yards, the crowd will roar for him. So I think if you can get them guys doing the simple things, I think Jack Grealish would have no problem on Aaron Glenn, because he relished that. He's another character. He's quiet. You wouldn't know what he's thinking. He could do anything. But I think now he has built a lot of loyalty, I suppose, and he's made it his place. Number 2, wasn't he? Number 2 or number 4, whichever he's playing in there at cornerback. He's made it his own now, where he's been coming in and out for years. But I think now it's his own. And I suppose he needs confidence. He's got his confidence. So I think now that he wouldn't have any problem pushing up and going man to man with any boys either.
Yeah, really good insight too into Jack Grealish. And if we're to get into tactically how this game is going to set up, we've talked about matchups and everything here, Jeff. I presume it's going to be no different on like every game. It's really going to be a war zone in this middle third.
Yeah, look, it's the middle third battle it's like any game really. It's who's ready mentally and physically for it and who wants it more. We will have guys in next that will enable. But at the end of the day, if you want it bad enough, you do what needs to be done for the cause. The matches are going to be important. Our tactics are going to be important. But when the players step on the pitch, they got to win their own battle. First and foremost, whoever they're marking. And if we have the confidence going up thinking we have a chance here, that's huge. You know, you're against whatever they're going for 4 in a row. But all the teams in Munster have shown us a platform this year in terms of what to do to try to upset Limerick. And it's going back to, look, you can call it any type of hurling you want. It's going back to old school hurling. It's man-on-man stuff. I think that suits us when it's off the cuff. A small bit, we do need structure with the lads. At times, we will need to give protection to our full back line, especially. Ian needs to improve on the puckouts in terms of his own game management as well. You know, those puckouts where he's hitting, he's looking for a big wind up, that's fine. But sometimes you just got to go where the numbers are. You know, you're looking for the Hollywood puckout. You know, that's fine.
Just on that, against Tip, like, we got some amount of puckouts. I couldn't even tell you how much in the first half. It was just really close to that end down in the Gaelic grounds. I don't think that's something we're probably going to get on Saturday. No. And Limerick will set traps for you. Yeah. They will let us have it. They could let us have it, and you don't want to go walking it out either. It's either go short or go long. Put it down on top of our half forward line and press them high up the pitch. You know, so sometimes you just got to feel your way into the game, especially in Croke Park. It's about game management. I think Darden and the Leinster finally come out with a ball, just went straight down the line with it. You're going, Darden, where are you going? Either go back to in and go back out the far side, or just put it down the line. As Davy touched on there, just keep it simple for the first quarter. You don't need any heroes in the first 20 minutes. It's just executing your own job, whatever you have to do, and get the scoreboard ticking and see where it brings us. Davy, from your own experience, what's it like now as players preparing for an All-Ireland semi-final?
I suppose it's changing year on year with social media, etc. I suppose they're not in hiding, but they're probably keeping out of the limelight a bit. They don't want questions. They don't want lads asking you the same question, how are you going to get on against Limerick? Like, you could record an answer and just play it to everyone. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, you're hoping that you have a good performance. You're trying to, I suppose, keep yourself. When you're training, you're on, I suppose. But when you're off, you kind of want to detox. You're either going for a coffee or you're going for a walk, or you have a girlfriend or partner or kids, whatever it may be. So you're trying to switch off as well, because mentally you can drain yourself, and physically on the field, like, the life will be drained out of you if you think about it too much. I suppose at the end of the day, it's a game that we're playing. It's an amateur sport. We're playing it to enjoy it. And I suppose if you're not getting enjoyment out of it, I do think that you're not going to get the best out of players. I suppose the likes of your Conor Coonies that haven't been going well. I know Conor, I suppose, mentally was probably drained, was probably not going well. The outside the group, public, people talking, Conor Cooney, he's not going well, he should be dropped. That's what's talked about, like, and it's players, I suppose, hear that, and it's not easy for families or whatever, etc. Hearing it, it goes on. But I suppose you kind of have to surround yourself with positive people, with people that you know, that you trust. Obviously, coming up to games, all these lads are experienced now that they have their own stuff that they like to do, whether it's go for a walk with the dog, or whether to stay at home or stay in your own bed the night before the game, or whatever it is. But all these guys, I suppose, are in a semi-final, and all are in a semi-final for a reason, because they're all like elite athletes, and they have all their own ways of dealing with the week before a game. I suppose it's downtime now. Keeping positive, getting obviously your matchups right, getting your tactics right, getting your hydration in, sleep, everything that goes with it. I suppose controlling the controllables is basically the only way I can put it. And the next few days, lads can control the way it's fair. But when they go out in the field, I suppose they can't control the Limerick players. They can only control themselves. And if they prepare, obviously training is going well, mind their injuries. There's going to be a few injuries. There's going to be lads that are going to get knocks on the day. There could be lads that could get sick before the game. So I suppose everyone has to be on, not just the 15 lads that think they're going to start. I think everyone, and that brings unity, I suppose, and consistency. And I think that if all them boxes are ticked, I think Galway have a massive chance on Saturday evening.
Can you think about the prize up for grabs at all, Davy?
I don't think so. I think there's an awful lot of ups and downs. I think there's an awful lot of refereeing decisions that you have to get. You have to have a little bit of luck. Have we had good refereeing decisions in the last couple of years? You'd be iffy about it. But I do think you need all the things to go your way. Last year, would I be right, Jeff? How many Hawkeye decisions went against us? And when you look back now on Hawkeye being off, or it wasn't right, I think Ronan got a score. It was waived by the umpire, and I think was it 2 or 3 minutes later they pulled it back, and they didn't give it. Then after that, I think they were saying that Hawkeye actually wasn't working right. So them little decisions are massive in the scheme of a 70 or 75 minute game. So I think we need, I suppose, little decisions like that to go our way for us to have a chance as well.
Jeff, as well, like we're talking here about Galway maximising performance and everything, and the challenge is huge this weekend. But we do have to touch as well, Limerick had a 3 or 4 week break now. They are going to come into this game. Obviously, the losses of Sean Finn and Declan Hannon are big, but they are going to come in with a freshness this weekend.
Yeah, look, they managed it well last year. Probably learned an awful lot from the Kilkenny game, the year that they lost, that the 4 week break they got caught. And again, it was a call that went against them, a sideline. 65 that went against them that they didn't get, that cost them the game. But look, Limerick, in terms of their own performance levels, like they're no more than their own lads. It's a high performance environment. They have highly professional people involved with them in their setup. But like for me, looking at it as well, more than any other county in the last couple of years, we've gone toe to toe with them. We probably need a small bit of luck. James Owens is reffing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Our record with him isn't great, to be honest with you. But like the luck part of it is one part of it, but earning the right to get to an All-Ireland final, it's a huge prize. And you got to earn the right. And I think the lads, we've touched on it there. There will be a huge amount of hunger within this group because they've lost the Leinster final. They've had no piece of silverware yet. So the next prize after that is getting into an All-Ireland final. And I know the boys, I know Jack and Keenan, Evan and Bino, coupled with Finton and all these lads and Tom Manning, they'll have the hunger inside them. When they go to Croke Park, they're used to performing. no more than the rest of the boys up there, Joseph. When Evan turned that ball over in the second half, the last day, you could see Joseph going up to Evan and more or less saying to him, Jesus, now, yeah, you're now a county player. You're now working hard for the group. It's not just about taking frees, you know. So that stuff is huge for the boys that are on the 24, 25 mark. But as Davy touched on there, they need to stand up now and lead this. They need to drive this. Their time has come now. This doesn't come around, as Davy will tell you, every 12 months. You have an opportunity here the next day to put a performance in and see where it brings you. But they're going to need to have the hunger and the drive within them as a group. I think they've got that. I think the loss that they suffered from the Leinster final, they found something against Tip that a lot of us weren't expecting. I know Henry was, but they're going to need to find more, as Davy has touched on there earlier. We're going to need to find more in terms of taking this Limerick team down.
Henry touched on after that game that he's waiting for this group for a spark, Jeff. When you talk there about this is going to be Galway's first game in Croke Park since the heartbreaking defeat to Kilkenny and All-Ireland final up for grabs, are those things you can mention as management in the lead up to this game?
I'd say the lads would have reviewed the Leinster final. Look, you can't replicate what happened in those final 35, 40 seconds. In fairness to Park, he was back out in the media the following day. He had processed it himself. He had moved on. So the management would have moved on. Once the Tip game was over, they would have gone into the mode of prepping themselves and getting ready for Limerick. So will they touch on it? No. Will they have will they have extra motivation? Yeah, 100%. They don't want that feeling again, like we all had when that ball went in. They don't want that feeling again. And hurt can drive you on and spur you on to do amazing things, but they just have to, as Davy touched on there, you're just going to have to execute the simple things really well. Find your rhythm, find your flow, and then go after it, and then chase it and hunt them down.
The margins have been so tight here, lads. I was just looking back today. The last 3 times we played them in Championship, the heartbreaking defeat in 18, obviously, where they pip us by a point. 23 points in it last year as well. 3 points in it. Like David, there's never been more than 3 points in it, and I think we can all agree this is going right down to the wire.
Oh, well, you'd hope so. And I suppose there won't be too much in the game, and that's what I was saying. You have to stay with Limerick as long as possible. And then, obviously, bring in your fresh legs. I think we have a better pack of players coming in that Limerick have. Henry obviously said after the game that he just was waiting for that spark to come. I think he can see that in training. He can see the ability. He can see what I suppose some of the Galway players can do are absolutely outstanding. I suppose they're doing it in training, but just to transfer it out onto the pitch now is what they all need to do. I do think obviously Limerick will be afraid of Galway. I do think they know it's like Kilkenny. Kilkenny were always afraid of Galway. That Galway were always able to turn them over. That they had the ability to do it. But I suppose at the end of the day, we're all hoping, but they've put in such a big effort now, and it takes a massive effort that they need to show it now on Saturday evening. There's a massive prize at stake, but saying that just because you beat Limerick doesn't mean you're All-Ireland champions. It's only a semi-final. So there is a big chance, but hopefully now, all going well, that they have what they need to do it.
Just on final predictions, Davy, do we need to score 2 or 3 goals to win on Saturday?
I think it could become a shootout. I think Limerick were able to adapt, and they could outscore you with points, with goals. You probably need to stop Glennon getting a goal. I think if we stop Glennon scoring a goal, I think we have a great chance. I think Galway will need to get 2 goals. That's I suppose to get them 2 goals. That's where I'm looking at Bino. I think we need Bino on form. I think he can get us a goal. I think Wheelo, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he could come out with another 1-3, 1-4, 1-5. but I think he needs a little bit more help. It was grand against Tipperary. That performance won't do. I think we need more forwards hitting more scores. The two boys in midfield, I think there's going to be a big battle with Will O'Donoghue and O'Donovan. They won't eat you alive with scores, but they're the workhorses for the half back line. They're linking. They do an awful lot of the heavy work for the forwards. They create space for Limerick's wing forward line to come back and pick up ball. They do a lot of the dog work. It's basically like a donkey worker. So I think that, I suppose, if it is Ronan at midfield, if it is Sean and Ant, if it is Joe Cooney, I think them guys have the ability. They did it last year. I think they go toe to toe and they fight with them boys. I think they have a great chance. But we have to win in the middle third for that inside line to be getting scores and be getting joy off and getting ball in.
Just before we do get your prediction, Jeff, do you see Limerick lining out the same way they did in that Munster final? Obviously, Mulcahy and David Reedy came into the team that day.
Yeah, I'd say Reedy will start. Mulcahy will do that job of occupying, if it was a +1 or a 6, he does that job really well. Where he occupies the centre back. But Reedy did a really good job the last day when the 10 and 12 pockets were empty. Reedy was hitting them. I'd say he picked up one, if not two, puckouts, quickly in the second half, where Clare had pushed up on times. And I know probably Dave Morris would have this analysed to the nth degree in terms of dealing with Limerick. So the lads will be well tuned in. There will be times they'll have to press. There will be times that we'll have to drop. The only change I'll see happen is Colin Coughlin coming in, and probably Burns going to 6. It's dealing with Cathal O'Neill and Adam English when these lads have to come on. We need to be really in tune here. If one of our wing backs or cornerbacks are getting tired, it's getting fresh legs and fresh minds on at that stage, because O'Neill's a shooter and Adam English is a shooter also. Them boys need to be tied down. But on our bench, as we touched on already, need to be making a huge contribution also. So look, it's a great game to look forward to in terms of trying to guess what will happen. But like Anthony else, once the ball is thrown in, anything that you've envisaged or you planned, whatever, could go out the window also.
Now, how are we going to get to the All-Ireland final? What are we going to do to overcome them this weekend, Jeff?
Occupy their 6 backs. We probably need 222, 223. Outwork them, outfight them. And then after that, then win the game management battle. If you remember last year, there was a great clip on Twitter where they got the point and the water carrier come onto the field to tell King Lynch to drop back in behind the half back line. It's that sort of game management that we need to exercise as well the next day. And we have the lads with the smarts to do that. It'll probably be a 1 or 2 point game, and I'm just hoping that it does by 2 on Saturday evening.
Yeah, like a huge game awaits us here this weekend between Galway and Limerick at 6 o'clock in Croke Park on Saturday. A huge occasion here for Galway, a massive opportunity to reach their first All-Ireland final since 2018. We wish the very best of luck to players and management this weekend, and here's hoping that Galway can reach that All-Ireland final. That's all on our show for today. A massive thank you to Davy, Glennon and Jeff Lynskey for coming on.
Thanks, lads.